Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, Hi everyone. I'm Gary Null. Always nice to be able to share positive insights on how we can live a longer and healthier life. We begin our program today with a study from Queensland University of Technology. It's about the mushrooms. I've been citing on several programs new studies showing all the different ways that mushrooms can protect you from cancer and other conditions, stimulate the immune system. So I'm sure that you're now aware that, hey, maybe shiitake mushrooms, the white cap mushrooms, they're all good, but there are a lot more that are even stronger, especially boosting your immune system and fighting cancer. Now, there are countless foods and compounds out there being researched for their cancer-fighting abilities. We've discussed it in many occasions. For example, the cruciferous vegetables. I believe that we should be having 2 servings a day, one in the afternoon, one in the early evening. Broccoli, cauliflower, kale, mustard greens, watercress, asparagus. These are all phenomenally important. They contain chemicals. These chemicals, including isothiocyanates and indole-3 carbanols, these are sulfur-based and they fight cancer. They keep cancer from spreading. Now, if you throw in some modified citrus pectin, you really have a 1-2 punch if you have cancer. But now we're talking about the mushroom, and a particular mushroom called turkey tail. Turkey, Turkey, and it's one of the foods that has gained some really significance in the last year. Specifically, the mushroom has been shown to be highly effective at suppressing prostate tumor development. Now, the research is coming out of Queensland University of Technology, and they're looking at specific compounds called polysaccharide peptides, or PSP, which is found in the turkey tail mushroom. For the study, they used 2 groups of mice and over a 20-week period, and they found that the mice that were given the turkey tail extract had a much better outcome, really substantially beneficial outcome. So if you have prostate problems, definitely look, among other things, like avocado pygeum and all the other nutrients you can take. Think about the turkey tail mushroom. It's good for your immune system. Now, we know it works against prostate, but why wouldn't it work against other cancers? They haven't tested against other cancers. But if something works that well against a prostate tumor formation, why wouldn't these polysaccharide peptides also work against breast cancer or brain cancer? I just think it's worth eating them on a regular basis, maybe once a week. Now, from the Technological University of Munich in Germany, the pungent ginger compound puts immune cells on heightened alert. That's why I always suggest have a celery, cucumber, ginger juice in the morning with lemon. Ginger is one of the single most powerful healing herbs you can find. It stimulates the immune system in a major way. And new results from the Institute for Food System Biology at the Technological University of Munich now supports this thesis. In laboratory tests, small amounts of a pungent ginger constituent put white blood cells on heightened alert. The study also shows that this process involves a type of receptor that plays a role in the perception of pain, painful heat stimuli, and the cessation of spiciness in food. Even though ginger consumption has increased, the question arises as to whether normal consumption levels are sufficient to achieve health effects. I call it the laws of compensation, which means this. If I know that onions can lower blood pressure and apples contain quercetin, which is a great healer, really helps your arteries, helps as an antiviral agent. In fact, once I visited Dr. Pauling at his Pauling Institute in California, and I was filming a Dr. Jawala, who was head of virology at the time, and he showed that he could take just quercetin and kill the HIV virus in vitro. Then he'd use vitamin C, also killed it. Then a combination of vitamin C and quercetin together in equal amounts, devastating. So I started to use even more of the vitamin C quercetin in my protocols with really good success, especially killing the HIV virus and helping people with full-blown AIDS. And by the way, there's a multi-award-winning documentary. I think it's the most award-winning documentary this last year. It's called The Cost of Denial. And it takes you on a journey of what happens when you have natural ways of approaching a major killer like AIDS, and shows you the great outcome. Anyhow, back to the point. The point is that if you know that something is good for you, why not take a little more? Like have more onions throughout the day, or have more cruciferous vegetables, or eat an apple, or have an apple smoothie with the peels, because that's where the nutrients are. It can help, and that's what this study on ginger showed. So most people only have just kind of like the dry ginger powder as a spice. Most people don't eat a lot of ginger. Maybe in a dish, they might have some in a restaurant, but rarely does a person go to the effort to buy the raw ginger and then peel it and then either shave it or dice it and put it into a dish, like a stir-fried vegetables. In fact, a really good dish to get the active ingredient, and the active ingredient in ginger is called gingerol, Gingerol. And it doesn't take a lot, but that ginger, once it's in your blood for about 30 to 60 minutes, it really makes a difference at the biological level. It really helps you. If you're nauseous, it helps you with an upset stomach. It helps you with nausea. It helps prevent vomiting. And you want to increase your plasma concentrations. And there's from 7 to 17 micrograms per liter, but let's not get into that. But just know that that pungent compound is known to exert the taste factor in your receptors in your tongue. So it makes everything you're eating taste better. If you have chili peppers, it'll make the chili peppers more pronounced. Now I use spices like cardamom, coriander, also use rose, and I use a whole lot of different flavors. I must have 60 different spices, and always make sure that the cap is sealed properly because they'll dry out. But also I like to use the fresh too. Like I'll get a fennel and I'll dice it and put it into a salad. It has that licorice taste. It's crunchy, it's delicious. But with ginger, I find that if you take ginger and you juice it, maybe one piece, maybe like this, if you're watching right now, about 5 or 6 inches long, about an inch wide, and you juice it. And then you can add lemon to that. And I also add a couple other things, tarragon in particular, and also sometimes some cayenne. And then I put that into a little diffuser and I spritz it on dishes. Like I'll have brown rice with diced vegetables, a great dish, and I just spritz it. And that gives the flavor. The ginger pronounces the flavor for the whole dish, makes it much more tasty. In any case, that ginger is doing a lot in your body. It's putting all of your cells on heightened alert so that they are better stimulated to fight any pathogen. In fact, they stimulated cells at about 30% more strongly to a peptide that stimulates a bacterial infection. So if it's bacterial, if it's viral, no matter what the infection, it's really good for you. Yeah? You want that. It's easy and expensive. Even putting ginger, fresh ginger juice into a tea. And I like hibiscus. And so I'll make a hibiscus tea, and then I'll put some, maybe a half a teaspoon of ginger juice in and a little manuka honey. That's a delicious tea. Time of day may determine the amount of fat burned by exercise, according to the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. Simply stated, physical activity at the right time of the day seems able to increase fat metabolism, at least in mice. This is a new study. It was also done at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark, and it shows that mice that did exercise in an early active phase, which corresponds to morning exercise, when most people do their exercise, increase their metabolism more than mice that did exercise at a time when they usually rest, like in the evening. The results are published in the journal PNAS. So the physical activity at different times of the day can affect the body in different ways, since the biological process depends upon the circadian rhythm of the cell, which, by the way, once again, and no one's asking you to be perfect at this, but do all you can to get 8 hours of sleep a night. If you have problems with your prostate that cause you to get up to urinate several times a night, just follow some lights that are very low, so you don't trip or fall or hurt yourself, but you get to the bathroom back. But don't turn on bright lights, because they suddenly stop the secretion of melatonin from the pineal gland, which will adversely affect your immune system, won't give it the strength it needs. Also, you might want to compensate by having melatonin, anywhere from 1 to 5 milligrams, about an hour or two before you go to bed, and some magnesium, about 500 milligrams of magnesium before you go to bed, and about 200 milligrams of theanine. And that theanine, which is an amino acid found in green tea, relaxes you, totally chills you out. And then it takes me maybe under 10 seconds to fall asleep when I go to bed, because I just get into bed. Anything that I'm focused on, I write down on a pad in order of priority. And then I look at it and I say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to finish this peer review study I'm working on. I'm going to, counsel these 8 people. And it's all laid out. Then my mind doesn't have to think about it. And then I just go to a simple mantra, calm. And I say to myself, calm, just calm down, be at ease, be at one, calm, boom, I'm asleep, going into a very deep rapid eye movement sleep. And that's where a lot of the healing occurs. That's where your catabolic activity of eliminating dead cells, damaged cells, repairing them, and getting the non-digested fibers out of the body with bacteria, so you can start the day healthy, clean, and ready to go. But knowing what time of day, for me, exercising early is best. I've tried both. And frequently when I'm training for long races, I've done over 84 marathons alone, I have to train twice a day. And it always feels different training in the evening than in the morning. So anyhow, you have to understand the researchers found that physical activity at an early phase in the morning increased the expression of genes involved in the breakdown of adipose tissue, what is called thermogenesis, meaning heat production, and mitochondria, that's your energy factories, in the adipose tissue, indicating a higher metabolic rate. And if your metabolism is up, you're going to be burning more fat. You'll have more energy. When our metabolism is low, which frequently happens beginning in perimenopause, and then menopause, and then postmenopause, you just don't have the strength. You don't have the energy you once had. Fatigue is common. And we can change a lot of that just by, when we exercise, when we eat, when we stop eating and don't eat again until breakfast after dinner. And hey, during the 1970s, a lot of you, myself included, were out dancing. We enjoyed partying with friends. There was just a vibrancy in the city. It happened once, happened from about 1972 to 1985. And then AIDS came in. Everybody was afraid to catch AIDS. They thought that AIDS was in the air, shaking hands, being close to someone. It wasn't, but people feared that. So they went to an entirely different way of socializing. And boy, wasn't that fun. Now, a lot of us stayed out late. I don't like staying out too late, but if you're going to stay out a little later than normal, have yourself a half-hour nap in the early afternoon. It helps. So then there's a study from the University of California at San Francisco, and it says that stress can be contagious, and infants can be stressed from their mothers. Whoa. New research shows that babies not only pick up on their mother's stress, they also show corresponding physiological changes. That's true. So in effect, the infants catching and embody the physiological residue of their mother's stressful experiences. This was shown in this study. This is published in Psychological Science, a journal of the Association of Psychological Science. Now, we've all seen the epigenetic consequences of having parents, one or both, who get stressed and how they respond to stress. But people are not aware when they themselves are going through stress, how it will impact other people and children in particular. Now, everyone gets angry at something sooner or later, but how you express that anger. Are you a screamer? Are you a yeller? Can you let it go? Can you take a step back? Can you count to 10? More often than not, the answer is no, especially now, especially a younger generation that feels that they have every right to scream, and that's a lot of their ways of communicating. Not the majority by any means, but too many. And so others pick up on it. And then a lot of the music is violent, the films are violent, the video games are violent. And so how you deal with a situation frequently is based upon your conditioning from the environment you're in, including films, including being around other people. And that's why it's so important sometimes just to take a respite, take a break, and go to an ashram, go to a Buddhist center, not to study Buddhism, but be in an environment that's totally silent, meditative, austere, where you can really focus inwardly and deal with a lot of those issues. Or go into nature. I think it's wonderful to spend time in nature. I spend time every day in nature. I've always loved nature, whether I'm hiking in the woods or, going out to tend to the animals in the fields. You're around green, you're around beauty, you're watching the sunrise in the morning. You're seeing the love of animals. Oh, and animals will show you love, by the way. They'll come right over to you and just nuzzle you and put their big head. A cow will put its big head right there and at your neck and lick your face. They love being loved. They're just filled with love. If people saw how animals are treated for food production, we'd have a lot more vegans and a lot more empathy for the sacredness of animal life. In any case, it's been shown that the epigenetics that we grew up in, though absorbed at the subconscious level, you can't, as a young kid, you can't intellectualize this, and you're helpless to anything about it, but you certainly process it all at the emotional level. And that can then create a negative feedback loop. So if you see someone shaking their heads in disgust or frowning or crossing their arms, all that is in that feedback loop that the infant is aware of. How a mother talks, or talks too loud, or talks in an angry way, that creates that negative feedback loop. And that decreases the positive emotion and greatly increases the negative emotion. So be very conscious of how you speak with people, the tone of your voice. I remember once I was on WMSCA, this is back in the early 1970s, and I did a show in the afternoon, and the owner of the station was she was her and her husband were two of the most powerful Democrats in New York, and they had what was known as a very liberal station. But there were some very conservative people on there as well. Bob Grant, Barry Farber, Long John Neville, and Candy Jones. In any case, she had a meeting every week, and she would just dress everyone down. Barry Gray, one of the legends of broadcasting, was there. Larry King was there. Bruce Williams was there. I was there, and I was the junior person the youngest person on this network. And I had the worst time of day. I had dead time, 1 to 4 o'clock, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, lowest audience. Then you get into prime drive at 4 to 7, and you get in prime drive in the morning from 5 till 8. Those are the biggest show numbers. Most people are listening because they're commuting. In any case, she had this way of dealing with people that was very negative. And one day I'm doing my show, and she had it all scripted. You can only spend 7.5 minutes interviewing a guest, no matter who the guest is. And then in that 7.5 minutes, you had your introductions, and it didn't give long. It gave about 5 minutes for a full interview. Imagine you have someone, I had Buckminster Fuller, I had Rene Boudreau, I had George Borgstrom. These are legends, Pearl Buck and Linus Pauling, Albert Szent-Györgyi, the Nobel Prize winner, discovered ascorbic acid. I mean, if there was anyone who was important in philosophy, behavior, ethics, science, health, they were on my show. And I see her in the studio, and she's rolling her hand like this, which means speed it up, speed it up, speed it up. And then she's raising her hands up like, get your volume up, get your volume up. And so afterwards, I was called into an office, and there was a person there. And he said, Gary, we're going to go into this other studio here, empty studio, and I'm going to show you how to talk on radio. So we went in there, and he said, okay, read this. And it was just a simple report. And I read it, and he said, no, all wrong. It's dull. No one's going to listen to you. You've got to do it this way. Hi, I'm Gary Knoll, and today we're going to be talking about... And I just looked at my lap. I said, that's not me. I speak in a calm voice. I believe that people appreciate hearing it because the vibration of my voice, which is authentic, can calm people down. That's why some people like taking their lunch break when the show's on, so they can just relax, get some good information, but it's not yelled at them. You know, it's not screaming and yelling and farcical behavior. He said, well, that's what she wants, and she owns the station. And because I wouldn't change, I was told I was gone. Okay, fine. Then she went off on vacation for the summer. When they came back from Europe, she was surprised to see I was still there. But the program director said, well, why don't you take a look at the Arbitron ratings? And she did. And I think she left in it, my ratings were in the neighborhood of 2,000. When they came back, there were over 70,000. And within a year, they were at 129,000, the number one radio program in all of America at that time slot. Of all 5,000 or 6,000 stations, number one. So she decided not to fire me that day. So you see, think of how you speak with people. Think of the energy in your voice, because there is energy in your voice. There's a message in the energy, a calming effect. When you get injured, cut up, scraped, got in a fight, whatever it is, your mom or your dad don't scream at you, or shouldn't. They try to calm you down. Say it's okay. Just one of the things going to happen in life, and you'll get over it. Just want to share that with you because we're not in a good place today, whether it's our legislators or corporate leaders, whether it's our media personalities. They don't talk as if they care about you. They talk as if they're trying to sell you a message that you're stupid, they're not. You're out of touch with reality because you're listening to misinformation, and yet you have truth on your side. They don't. And then they get angry. There's just bridal anger everywhere today. Now, I'm not saying the average person is filled with anger. I'm saying the average person today is filled with disappointment. And they accept that this is a world they cannot control everything. None of us can control everything. But to the degree we can control our perceptions, we can control how we perceive information, then you can't control me by playing, the devil's advocate. You can't scare me into change. You can't cajole me or threaten me into change. If I'm going to change, it's because it's reasonable, it's right, I have proof that it will work, or I have confidence in my abilities to make it work. And that's how we get through our crisis and our problems. A lot of kids out there had parents didn't appreciate that, and as a result, today they're overacting, acting out, or not acting at all. One final thing from the University of California, Los Angeles. There's a pilot study showing the role of grapes in preventing Alzheimer's disease. I'm a big believer in grapes. Now, where I grew up, there were no grapes. Nobody ate grapes where I came from, in my small town in West Virginia. In fact, we rarely ever had fresh fruit. We would only have fresh fruit. And I can remember to this day, when our neighbors would bring us, something off the vine of their gardens. Now, we didn't have a garden. I had a dog, Prince, and he dug up the yard and we played out there. It was like you would perceive a normal backyard, but all the neighbors on our block, almost all of them older people, they had these wonderful, beautiful little gardens. They were called victory gardens because after World War II, people wanted to grow some of their own food because there was a scarcity of food. People got their food through food vouchers during World War II. Same with gasoline. And those were not always the healthiest foods to get: canned stuff, meat, etc. And so we'd get some fresh tomatoes. And I just remember how good they tasted. And cherries, whatever was growing, that's what we get. You go in the stores, the only lettuce you could get was iceberg lettuce. That was it. And tomatoes, the tomatoes that were, grown, were harvested prematurely. They tasted like cardboard, had no taste. No one had olive oil, except my Italian friends, they did. But everyone else had some kind of a dairy dressing to go over. And so we had a very limited diet. Lots of meat, lots of potatoes, everything white bread, and white rice, rarely had rice, and nothing exotic. And our only seasonings were really salt and pepper. That's it. And so it was only when I went to France and I wanted to see what was going on with that French paradox, where they had a lot of cholesterol in their diet, but they did not have heart disease and clogged arteries because of that cholesterol, as we do in the United States or other countries. And I found out it wasn't because they're drinking wine. That's what we were told. And that's what all the doctors started recommending. Well, have 2 drinks of alcohol a day. Not even just have 2 drinks of wine a day. It was 2 alcohol. I remember distinctly writing a book on alcohol just to show you there was no such thing as a safe glass of alcohol. None. Not even a glass of beer. And that was, in about 1975, I wrote that. And it took almost 45 years before the scientific community has finally today said no alcohol should be in your diet. None of it's good. It's all harmful. What about all the people who was following my advice and being healthy, having healthy hearts, healthy arteries, and all the people following the AMA's advice and getting sick? Their liver, their kidney, their brain, 1 million dead cells with every hard alcohol. In fact, there was a lawyer who came to see me and he said, I don't know what's wrong, but man, I've got all kinds of heart problems and I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I eat healthy and I exercise, and my cardiologist just keeps giving me more drugs. And I said, well, tell me about what you do. Well, his diet was not bad. It didn't produce disease, and his exercise was good. But then he said, and for my heart, I have 2 glasses of alcohol a day. My doctor recommends it. My cardiologist recommends it. Okay, what kind of alcohol? I like bourbon. And so I have a glass of bourbon in the afternoon and then 1 for dinner. Whoa. I said, well, you're killing somewhere between 2 to 4 million cells of your brain, your heart, your liver, your kidneys per drink. He didn't know this. So we got the cardiologist on the phone and I said, why aren't you offering him coenzyme Q10 and carnitine and other nutrients I was mentioning that could help his heart? Well, there's no science in that. There's a lot of science. He just wasn't aware of it. Well, the guy went off all alcohol, did a real rejuvenation, gave him a protocol, and suddenly within 6 months, most of that damage was undone. So you can undo damage. But here we're talking about something that's simple, really simple. Consuming grapes twice a day for 6 months protected against significant metabolic decline in Alzheimer's related areas of the brain. Wow, especially people who had early memory decline. People in there today with COVID, long COVID, I'm seeing dementia in 20 and 30-year-olds, real dementia. And that's not going to be reversed. There is a protocol that can reverse it. I can't discuss it today. It's too long. But someone has actually reversed brain aging protocol. And I filmed them, and you'll see the documentary hopefully next week. In any case, they found that anything grapes, but not wine. Why? Because they never told you the full story. If they did, you say, well, that's stupid. But when I was in France, I saw that people really went for organic. They went to the market almost every day, not once a week or every 2 weeks, just loaded up with crap. They would go to the market. In fact, I went to the market through a friend of mine who lived in France, and he showed me what people buy. And in fact, we biked in and we met a friend of his, a woman, older woman, school teacher, who had two big little containers on her bike, baskets. And she had a knapsack, but it wasn't a regular knapsack. It was something you would see that they frequently use in Africa to put all their stuff in so they can carry it. And big opening. And she filled all that up. And when I was talking with her, I said, well, how often do you go to the store? She said, well, I rarely go to the store, but I come to this fresh market because it's a wonderful market. And indeed it was. Small booths, but dozens and dozens of them, everything you could imagine. They had just one specialized in all fresh herbs. Must have had 200 different types of herb. And the people go, they smell stuff, they sample stuff, and they buy it. She said, most people in France who are native French, they like to buy fresh. They like their bread fresh, and they like it a certain way. Well, I could understand that. I hadn't seen that before. And so every single home I went into, every single one had a big bowl of fruit on the table and overflowing everything else that was in season, pears or apples, or grapes. And I said, how much grapes do you sell? We eat grapes all day long. She said, we love grapes. But also a lot of people made their own wine, which was a prebiotic because of the fermentation. And little alcohol, but lots of good bacteria. And it has a chemical called resveratrol. Resveratrol is a natural heart nutrient. It's phenomenally important for your brain and your heart. And that's in there. But the commercial wines, which frequently have some chemicals that can cause asthma and all kinds of problems with your lungs, that goes along with it. You got to buy organic. But in any case, I started doing all the science on this and found out that it's the fruit that they eat, the grapes that they eat, the grapes that they eat, and they press grapes. And I watched how they made their own wines. And one regular person, normal house, 12,000 bottles of wine, and that they make. They're really connoisseurs of that. So I come back to the United States. I start doing an analysis of how much resveratrol is there in a bottle of red wine, and how much would a person get in a glass? Generally, it's about 5 milligrams. Well, how much is the functional or therapeutic amount that you have to have? It's around 100 milligrams. Well, you'd have to drink almost a case of wine per night, which some people do, in order to get the benefit. So why not just buy some resveratrol, 100 milligrams to 2,000 milligrams now, and that really helps you. Okay, that's as if you know the science to begin with. But what if you had grape juice, organic grape juice, or organic grape concentrate, even better, organic grape powders, best of all. So just understand, when you have a grape-enriched diet, you're protecting against the decline of metabolic activity. You're consuming a grape-enriched diet also exhibits increased metabolism in other areas of the brain that correlate with individual improvements in attention and working memory performance. And those were compared against the non-grape diet. So there was a randomized controlled research study conducted at the University of California, Los Angeles. It was published in Experimental Gerontology, and it examined the impact of grapes as a whole fruit versus isolated compounds. And the results suggested that regular intake of grapes can provide a protective effect against early decline associated with Alzheimer's disease. How about that? But also, don't have alcohol. For the last 40 years, people have been doing the wrong thing, actually hurting themselves. The people were wrong. And last comes from the University of Illinois, Urbana, a sense of purpose can have significant impact on a teenager's emotional well-being. And that's one of the things some teenagers don't have. They don't have a sense of purpose. They just have the immediacy of this moment. And that's why they're always looking down. In fact, the last time I was in New York, I went over to the Museum of Natural History, and I'm watching one whole group of young people were in a room. Not one was looking at what was in the room. There were reason to be there. They were all looking down. So the adolescents who feel a greater sense of purpose are going to be happier, more satisfied with life than those who have less purpose. And some have no purpose. And that's not good, because when you have no purpose and then things start to happen that you have no control over, and let's just say you were raised in a highly protective or overly protective environment where you weren't responsible for the choices you made nor their outcome, and therefore there was no consequence doing something wrong or acting out in some negative way. But now you're challenged. But how do you survive? And unfortunately, it's really difficult. And that's a big group that are committing suicide, taking fentanyl, drinking alcohol, acting out. We have to reestablish. It's so important to reestablish in young people a true sense of meaning and purpose to have a wonderful life. That's the latest on health and healing. For those of you who only watch that each day, okay, there'll be more tomorrow. And I always select stuff that you haven't heard before, always new information, because we're reading the scientific literature every single day. But that's only part of the program. The rest of the program, we're going to go into a lot of important issues. And I also do a segment every day called Classroom on the Air. Yesterday was about life energies. It was about 2 hours long. And today it's going to be on love. And these are posted on Rumble, GaryNall YouTube, and Odysee. All right, and on GaryNall.com. We're going to take a break and be right back. And remember, every day, noon to 1, Monday to Friday, Tuesday on the Progressive Commentary Hour, which was really powerful if you listened to it last night. I go into all this on PRN.Live, PRN.Live, the #1 progressive radio program in America. And this is the #1 progressive radio program. Station, the program, we got a lot of great minds. So tune in and see what you think. Back in a moment.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.